Welcome back to another episode of Cseking In, where we dive behind the scenes, hearing from businesses and business people. With me in studio is Matt Johnston with Lime Architecture. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hi, Nikki.
Matt and I go back a ways.
Yes.
We go back a few years. But I just want to literally dive into some questions, and I hope you'll indulge me. So can you tell me a bit about Lime Architecture and maybe its evolution or its origin? Because I know it came from something else.
For sure. No, it's originally it was called Architecturally Distinct Solutions in Kelowna, but we were kind of tired of helping people spell architecturally.
Okay.
I mean, that was one of the reasons. The other thing, we wanted to rebrand. I was hoping to get and expand the offices down into LA. Love what goes on in that part of the US.
Oh, I
So
never knew
Lime
that.
Architecture kind of formed the new brand that we're trying to create. So I'm still working towards that. I love what happens there. It just got so busy in the Okanagan that we've kind of taken a little bit of a break pursuing that expansion.
Okay.
So yeah, that's locally, that's kind of how it started. And again, it's been quite a journey just to even get here where we are now under the banner of Lime Architecture.
So, Matt, what was your entry into architecture?
I love that question.
Yeah.
Because, even for me, before I studied, it was very abstract. A lot of people don't even understand the practice of architecture. I started off in a science degree, pursuing a science degree, thought I'd follow in my father's footsteps. But I was always so enamored by the magic of everything, more so than my classmates when I was in science. And I always stayed involved in the artistic side of things, did a lot of painting, portrait work, and just kind of hit me like a brick wall when I was studying actually in Ontario at Western. That's where I was doing my science degree. And I realized I wasn't doing it for myself. So then I changed direction, went to Carleton and did a 5-year degree there for architecture, which was fantastic and really set me on the path.
So what you would be in your 20s?
In my 20s, yeah. So it was in the 90s when I was studying at Carleton. As a matter of fact, our 4th year, we did a workshop at the Bauhaus in East Germany. And we were the very first workshop after the wall came down. So it was kind of a really beautiful time. Yeah, it was. It was such a great experience. And again, I just kind of had that bug for learning and design. So it was kind of a really nice time to be involved in that part of the world then.
So you graduate.
Yes.
And do you take employment somewhere?
I have to go back because I love this telling of the tale. I don't get to tell it very often, but it's funny because I sit down with a lot of students now, and I'm so excited, especially out of high school, that they're getting it before they get too far down the road.
Yeah.
So after doing a degree in architecture, you have to actually intern. And it's about 5 years. So I did a mix of Ontario and then came to Vancouver and interned under a great leader architect in this part of BC. His name is Peter Busby. So I did a couple years with him downtown Vancouver. And, and then so then after getting close to registration, met my first wife in Vancouver, decided that Vancouver wasn't really why I came out west. I came out west for the mountains, for the lakes. I actually put an offer on a house just outside of Vancouver. Luckily, they didn't accept it because I was going to transit into the city to work. And my wife at the time said, have you ever been to the Okanagan?
Okay.
Came around the corner the first time in 2000, went, this is where we're going to live. Yeah. So it was a fun, again, progression to make it to this town back then.
So you come, like many do, you come and you see this, you see the lakes and you see the mountains and you see the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful valley and all that we get to do here. It really is, it's rare.
It is.
And you decide to move here and make it home.
Yes.
Now what? Do you decide to be an entrepreneur?
I started with a local architect who's no longer with us, Art Huber. He was my mentor locally. We developed a great friendship. He passed away a few years ago from an accident, which was very sad. But we donated a bench up on Knox for him, our office. But so arriving here, again, I was excited. I've been downtown Vancouver. We were doing some dynamic work. And one of the first projects I did with Art, we did the Bank of Montreal downtown. And of course, he let me kind of work with his team and come up with something very modern, transparent, very downtown Vancouver. And I'll never forget it. We get in front of council and they went,
No.
never. What are you thinking? So, I was almost ready to leave, but I thought, no, I want to make it home. So, and at this stage, this many years later, I'm glad I did.
Okay.
But it has been an interesting experience working with the city and council over these years. Like, I've heard things like, that design is too Santa Monica. And I'm going, well, thank you. And I think Kelowna's right. But so, we were really fighting this small town rhythm. They had a real vision for what they wanted to see in terms of style and design. So,
and that changes council to council, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
And over time, like, this town has really matured. There's definitely a tendency towards the more modern now. I think that trend is happening. And then, of course, all the things that are happening with densification and so new legislation and performance of buildings, it's been a real transition from starting then those 24 years ago in Kelowna to where we are today.
Okay, so many questions I can ask out of that. So you have been self-employed for 24 years.
Yeah, so shortly after working with Art, I ventured out on my own. I also got a license. I was a licensed builder in BC, so I designed and built about 60 homes in Kelowna. And part of it was a desire. I wanted to get out and swing the hammer, but I think it also ultimately makes you a better designer.
Wait a minute, literally swing the hammer?
Sure.
Like you built?
I hired obviously all the sub-trades, but I was out there till 2 a.m. sometimes. Even my own first home I built here, I would be putting the lath and plaster down for flooring and back framing and with my team. But again, it helped me to understand the details, the limitations of joists and how long they can span. And so all that kind of comes into play today whenever we design a building in the office.
Sitting here today, checking the rear view mirror, is there anything that jumps out at you that you wish you would have done differently, or the opposite, that you're so thankful you pursued or did?
Yeah, I will say, I think it was 2012, we did the first, it was called LEED, it's an environmental measurement of performance. In 2012, we did a LEED home for Canada in Kelowna. And we really wanted to pursue that. I really care about sustainable design, energy efficiency. We had great water recycling in the house, and at the time it was ahead of the time for building design. And we really tried to get people to jump on board. But they really wouldn't if there was any additional capital cost, even if they made it up later. People just didn't want to pay it.
Interesting.
So what I am glad for is all that experience, because now legislation's forcing our hands, right, with the STEP code. And we're approaching net zero sort of ready homes by 2032 that's the target date. So it's progressing quickly. I wish it had started a lot longer, like a long time ago, but glad finally that, the province has stepped in and kind of forcing everyone's hand to think about energy efficiency.
I could ask a bunch in there, but I'm going to leave that.
Okay.
So I swear I just saw something in social. I can see it. It's a posting from you, and it's a design that I think you've brought to light that was designed pre-COVID, and I think it was around infill, or is there something? What was that about?
So in 2017, the city held a competition. It's called the Infill Design Challenge. Trying to take these small single lots in our urban center and come up with something that was multifamily. So we were one of the 2 winning designs, and that was in 2017. And since then, we've realized over 80 of those fourplexes in Kelowna alone. And again, a little ahead of the curve. Kelowna's always been quite progressive that way, because now the province is stepping in again.
Yeah.
Forcing, small lots to densify with, and as a matter of fact, it's going from 4 to 6 now in the city.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So some great advances in terms of using our precious, serviceable lands in the center of our city better, especially when there's great walking scores and you're on transit corridors. So as we grow in size and population, instead of sprawling, there's a lot of focus on really densifying the center of the city.
And I do think there's huge advantages to that. If you look at, and again, I'm going back to my chamber days, often hearing challenges around the public transportation corridor and the challenges in getting from point A to point B in the city. So I think it is really imperative to densify in the areas that we do have that public transit available, and it does make a lot of sense. Is there around the mentorship side? So you received mentorship from Art, and I can tell by your body language and demeanor that. And obviously, I mean, the bench and the tribute to Art, very meaningful to you. Have you returned that back to the universe? Are you mentoring? Do you mentor?
Yeah.
Isn't it intentional?
I think my entire team. So there's been some great advances in technology for drafting and designing, of which I committed to not learning how to use them because I would still be drafting.
Okay.
So I mentor my team. I provide oversight. So I get to take everything I've learned up until now and kind of help the team kind of take that even to the next step. Because, especially this densification we're talking about, these new rules require us to be very creative with very small footprints. We're trying to get several homes into a very small space. And kind of at the same time, we're trying to address the housing crisis. So it's not just a city growing up. I think the projection from CMHC was 3 million new homes by 2030, which is doubling our output in this country. It's almost impossible. But when you start taking single-family homes and you put 6 small homes on them, that starts to make sense, and it starts to balance off this kind of, shortage that we have for single-family homes. So there's lots of different things we're dealing with, and it's quite fun and challenging all at the same time. And I like to believe I'm helping to lead a really capable team. Like my core team, I'm just so proud of them and what they're producing. And so, yes, I think I'm returning it all to them and hopefully to the community. Like all this knowledge and this experience is translating into some new solutions that are helping our community.
And we need it. We need it. I mean, we're not Calgary that you just keep spreading out. So we have significant land restrictions, and we have to use the very small amount of space as we can wisely. So I get that. Do you think there's an opportunity to fulfill the need of the lifestyle needs of the decade that you're in? And that's kind of a loaded question. So as I reflect on our time here, our 25 years here, when you have small kids that are active in sports and you're volunteering for the baseball team and you got 12 kids sleeping over, because why not? And you are taking care of your elderly parents, they're living with you, and you're billeting other people's kids. You can't do that in a 600 square foot home. And I don't know that you can, I don't know. I mean, I guess you must be able to do it in a 1,200 square foot condo. But do you think, and if I'm putting you on the spot, Matt, just say pass. So do you think we have enough housing diversity in the city? Can we be better? Are those parts of our considerations as we're meeting the needs of all citizens?
I do think there's a great variety of homes that are still offered in the Okanagan, especially Kelowna. We still do single-family detached home design for some of the new neighborhoods. I don't think that's ever going to disappear. And I think you're right. There are needs and preferences by so many different families and people that a 600 square foot unit does work for 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
1,200 square foot townhomes are fantastic if again, being in the center of the city and close to all the amenities. We're carving out, we're hearing this a lot about green space and private outdoor space. So again, we're getting more creative. We're using roof spaces way more now, even in larger projects, large amenity spaces where there's shared barbecue areas, even dog runs on the roof. So we just have to be better at making sure we're not that we're still addressing those needs, which is the outdoor space, the green space, where can kids play. It is a challenge. The new rules that are still in draft form are right. They're challenging that even more. We're allowed to cover more of the site with more homes, which means less green space per home. But there are still requirements within those zones, whether it's outdoor deck space, roof space. So it's a real just juggling kind of all those influences. But I do think there will always be that variety of home types. Get a little bit further out of this missing middle, as they call it, and we'll find more and more of the single family homes that are still available.
What keeps you awake at night for the business?
Nothing for the business per se. It's just, I think it's how do we juggle all these things? Like we're hearing we need to provide all these new homes. At the same time, the STEP code, like I said, 2032 or 30, I think it's 2032 is that deadline for sort of being net zero ready. So there's a lot of pressure on building technology and building design to meet these two different pressures that are kind of coming at us.
And I would argue even conflicting pressures, because we've got this pressure to build, can I say, affordability or housing diversity that allows everyone to get into the market, because we're certainly not, it's tough. $150,000 house anymore.
It definitely is not. I mean, that's one of the benefits of, multifamily. They're not inexpensive, but they're not close to that average $1 million, I think, for a detached single family. So you can still find homes that are attainable, maybe not deemed affordable. But so again, it feels like you're right. There's some conflicting pressures. The building technology has to improve, and yet you have to double output. So how do you sort of manage both? And I think I just read something recently that the number of homes over the last 6 months has gone down slightly from the 6 months prior, even though that's about when this was announced that we have to double our output. So, so again, some of these new rules, though, with the additional multifamily from the province, is going to force sort of additional homes to kind of be realized in this town.
My son's friend, so excited. Actually, I think he's in engineering. Okay. I don't know. So excited. He finally had the opportunity to buy a house, and it's in Calgary. So one of the things I remember in 1998, 99 is we're graduating out of our college and our university, and then they're leaving. And so now we identified that there's a need to keep them here. Alberta's looking pretty good to some young kids.
I think so.
And actually, I didn't mean that in that negative way. I didn't mean kids. I meant our young adults, up and coming, our future. How do we keep them? Is housing a barrier?
Market, it's tough. I think like anyone getting into the housing market, you just have to find what works for you and your income if you want this kind of lifestyle. Like we said, what a place to live. So what we're seeing more and more of it offering are these micro suites, like they're 315 square feet. My son may be looking at one. He's local. And so, it's between the mid twos to the low 300s to get into the market. It doesn't mean that's going to be his family home. But again, somewhat attainable for someone just starting out. And then you hope, like real estate generally experiences, that it'll have a little more value down the road and his income will increase. And so I think, he's starting to think about that and plan accordingly. You're not going to get a single family home like you will in a lot of other parts of the world, but you get to live in Kelowna, you get into the housing market, and you hope you can leverage that down the road.
Okay, so back to LA. How are we getting there, and what does that look like? Are you doing direct flight to LA? Are you passing the baton to your team? Does Kelowna lose Matt, and does Matt go to LA? What are you doing?
I think as a designer, the freedom when you don't have cold winters is so different. Now you can see that in a lot of the architecture that comes out of that state as you get further south. So I've always had a real desire, again, for that creativity that kind of climate allows you. And one thing we stopped doing a long time ago in Lyme is the single family homes.
Okay.
Again, we're not geared for it. We're better at the larger projects, but I wouldn't mind dabbling again back in single family. We've done some neat ones with NHLers and people who are in industries that have allowed us to kind of play a little bit with that design. I miss that part of it.
Yeah.
So maybe we pursue that a bit, but I can see that even the team here would be part of whatever I'm doing if we expand and add a branch office. This is still going to be, again, the foundation of what Lyme does is the team that's here. It doesn't matter really where we're designing. They're very capable and creative. And again, I'm trying to oversee and give them that direction. So I would love to have a branch office where maybe they can even take turns coming down, or right. So it's not a perfect business plan yet. It's still a dream, and but I do plan on trying to make it work.
I love it. So last question, I think. This video is streamed on a number of channels right now, and we'll cut snippets and pieces out, and we'll publish things out over the next couple of weeks. So you have listeners, you have an audience. Is there something that locals here need to know about Lyme architecture that you can share with them, or that you would love them to know about?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. I didn't expect that. I think I just care about my community.
You do,
and I do, and I care about solutions for people who maybe have an opportunity that they don't even know about. We even have a free ebook on how to assess the value of your property and how to help you maybe think about multifamily. Because when we won that first infill design, I'll never forget an older couple was at a public hearing. They said, "You've destroyed the value of our property." And I said,
that would have hit you hard.
But you know what I told them? I said, whatever you think the value of your property is today, multiply that by 2, and that's where you'll be in about 2 or 3 years. And within a year, they were back in our office. And they said, not only did that happen, we don't have a mortgage. The bank said we have enough equity. We want to build one of your fourplexes. So then they got a brand new home. They have 3 that are generating income. So you're right, it did. It hurt, but it was rewarding that they actually came back. They listened. They did. And they saw what happened, and they saw what happened to values, and then they started to think about what we had talked about at that public open house, and they and so that would be my message. If anyone's interested in exploring what they have in the center of Kelowna and they're thinking of multifamily, we've become experts at it as a team. We've done so many. We're excited about these new rules. We're already starting to develop models for those. We love helping people kind of realize something maybe that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Matt, I thank you so much for coming in and meeting with us. It's been wonderful, and I wish you all the success, and I can't wait to hear your stories that are going to come from LA.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.